Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. This is Rohit, and you are listening to the Identity Navigator. In the last episode, we spoke about a new domain, Identity Threat Detection and Response, or ITDR. We spoke about how this space has evolved and now is getting the attention of some major players in the market. We also spoke about how this concept is not entirely new, but an evolution of identity taking a center stage in cybersecurity by becoming the number one attack vector which is out there. Because of a lack of formal definition of ITDR, every product is implementing it in a novel way. And this makes this space so much more interesting because some of the finest minds in the identity industry are trying to figure out how to best solve this problem. Today, we'll talk about one such vendor, BeyondTrust. Now, when we mention BeyondTrust, the first things that most of us think is privileged access management. Interestingly, when I went to their website as a part of this research, the first thing they mentioned was the write up PAM product and ITDR in font size 200, meaning that they are aware of the brand recognition challenge and their marketing team is focused on rectifying it. Beyond Trust has multiple products in their product suite, like password safe, privileged remote access, endpoint privilege management, Active Directory bridge, and a few more, all closely related to privileged access management. Their ITDR product that we would be talking about today is called Identity Security Insight, which claims to proactively strengthen identity security posture and build resilience around threat against threat by uncovering identity vulnerabilities and hidden path to privileges. As far as the tagline goes, it's pretty spot on. It tells us what it does. Proactively strengthen identity security posture and build resilience against threat. And it also tells us how it does it by uncovering identity vulnerabilities and hidden path to privilege. You would also notice the mention of the word resilience here used with identity. This is another new term like ITDR, identity resilience, which is gaining traction and vendors are coming up with this as a concept, as a framework, and also in some cases as a product. We'll probably have to spend an full episode about this new kid in the block, identity resilience. But some of the vendors are also considering resilience as a part of their ITDR offering, and Beyond Trust is one of them. For full disclosure, a little while ago, I posted on social media and asked the vendor in our identity and security space to reach out to me if they would like to showcase their product on the podcast. The conditions were simple. It is not a paid promotion, but an opportunity. And I will speak my mind to preserve the integrity of the podcast. Beyond Trust was one of the vendors that showed interest and were willing to go through the rigorous evaluation process we have at the Identity Navigator. So let's deep dive into Beyond Trust's Identity Security Insight product. Let's revisit the problem that the product is solving. We all have now heard that actors are much more likely to log in than hack in, leveraging unknown paths to privileges to gain unauthorized access to our environment. Any identity can be under attack, and any identity poses a risk of being an entry point or pathway for a threat actor to gain access and escalate privileges. Right? If you haven't heard the last episode, this is not a this is not a line that marketing team has asked me to say, but do check out the last episode on the ITDR, which deep dives into the space and the problem that it is solving. Now, the sheer number of identities, both human and non human, and associated accounts, often with unknown, excessive, and evolving privileges, is overwhelming for organizations to manage and secure. I remember when I was starting out around 2005, many of the companies had this ratio of human versus non human identities as 1 is to 3. Lately, I have seen these ratios go up to as to 1 is to 10. So, for every one human identity, you would have approximately 10 non human identities in your ecosystem. I would let it, I would leave it up to you to decide how many or what is the ratio in your organization. But again, this ratio of 1 is to 10 is not too far fetched, especially in the companies which are proactively using cloud as their primary infrastructure provider. It's also not about just the explicitly assigned privileges, but rather all potentially hidden paths to privilege, which an attacker can exploit to gain elevated privileges even from standard accounts. It is challenging, and we would all agree to it, if not impossible, to gain full coverage and visibility into the identities and their privilege across silos and interconnected risks, and even more challenging to manage and enforce least privilege access. Traditional security tools like XDR, CSPM, etc., while valuable, are reactive. They react to identity security incidents and not prevent them. They struggle to provide full coverage, analysis, and visibility into privilege risk and interconnected identity weaknesses across an IT landscape. So, it is challenging to gain a complete view of the security posture and address the most critical issues proactively. Let's look into some of the data that backs this problem. According to IDSA 2024 Trends in Identity Security report, 90% of the organizations experienced at least one identity related security incident in the past year. So isn't just about any security incident. It is the identity related security incidents. Another research that I looked at spoke about cases where the attacker leveraged a valid account for initial access. These cases are twice as hard to solve for than other security incidents. Another research which was overwhelming yet true was enterprise security teams use an average of 76 security tools. Think about how many security tools that your organization uses. And an attack surface exists at the seam of these product integrations. So, Beyond Trust philosophy around best practices for designing and implementing a solution for ITDR is pretty comprehensive. Let's look into it. They have a modern SaaS based solution with out of the box integrations to collect data from a diverse set of identity sources for complete coverage and to send data to the right system to drive action. This includes on premise infrastructure, cloud platforms, SaaS and identity infrastructure. Complete visibility and coverage with correlated context across all different kinds of system is crucial because if defenders can't see the risk, they can't fix it. They also have a very mature ML and AI workforce. So they have analysis that pairs a threat research team with ML and AI as a force multiplier to automatically uncover identity security posture issues. Because these systems are interconnected, there could be two innocent incidents that could lead to an AI or machine learning algorithm identifying that to be an issue when looked in the context of a singular event. You would remember we spoke about making sense of two distinct and innocent actions when combining together can reek of risk, and they have algorithms to detect this. Accurate prioritization of greatest risk to help defenders stay ahead with limited resources and evolving threat landscape. They have prescriptive recommendations and detections in places they need, such as incident response tool like SIEM, SOAR, and Slack. And they combine these proactive and reactive approaches. Reactive approaches includes detection of identity driven threats and action abuse of privileges, and then remediating those problems with integrating PAM controls and incident response workflows. Their proactive approaches includes visibility into all accounts, privileges, misconfigurations, entitlements, path to privileges across silos. Now, some of the common pitfalls to avoid during the implementation of any ITDR solution would be: don't have too narrow of a focus. Identity security needs to include all users, not just privileged accounts or privileged users. You need to identify indirect path to privilege via vulnerable configurations, interconnected systems, or whichever way you want to. And this is something that bugs me the most, that gluing together proprietary scripts, niche tools, and processes to combine and correlate data from siloed systems. It is impossible to maintain for most organizations, and there are gaps and big gaps that exists in any such implementation. Don't just rely on annual pen testing or vulnerability assessment to discover critical vulnerabilities. And then don't just focus on detection and response and neglecting prevention. Beyond Trust is definitely one of the giants in IAM space. They have solid brand recognition and impressive clientele in the PAM space. They have about 1,600 employees in 24 countries. They are headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, and have about 14 global office locations. Now, I have spent many weeks of my life over multiple years in Atlanta, living in some of the hotels in Peach Street. So, any company that comes out of Atlanta have a soft spot in my heart. Beyond Trust have 20,000 customers in 100 plus countries and 75 of the Fortune 100. And I looked at the Gartner, Forrester, and Kappinger Cole uh, re- reports, and they are one of the leaders, if not the leader, in the ITDR leader category, especially by Kappinger Cole. Now, their ITDR product, which is called Identity Security Insights, is a relatively new product launched in 2023. This addresses the gaps between siloed security solution by uncovering unidentified attack path using a unified identity centric approach. Recognizing that any account can become a foothold for privilege escalation. Identity Security Insights uses sophisticated analysis to uncover true privilege, weak controls, and obscure privilege path across all accounts, configurations, and environments. Leveraging AI and ML, it surfaces rich detection and recommendation, helping organizations proactively harden their identity security posture, prevent privileged abuse, and remediate issues with precise guidance and context. So they're checking a lot of boxes, but the question stands on why Beyond Trust. And no amount of brand recognition or recommendation from any analysis firm or current list of clientele can answer that for you. But you can check it out for yourself. They offer a free identity security assessment allowing you to uncover hidden identity vulnerabilities. The assessment provides answers like how effectively do they prevent and manage privileged access, but also detect when those privileges are exploited or active identity driven threats are present. With this assessment, you can check how sophisticated is their AI and machine learning. It is powered by continuous research. They have a pretty mature research team, and R&D budget is something that company the size of BeyondTrust can afford, and potentially not too many smaller vendors, which is fortunately or unfortunately a differentiator for them. And with this assessment, you also should get answers like how do they help protect identities, privileges, and the underlying identity infrastructure from modern and evolving threats in a holistic way. Some of the things that they carried out were they were crucial in detecting Okta support breach in October of 2023. We all have heard of it. Uh, Included session hijacking, proxy-based admin action, and other anomaly detection, and they did it weeks before Okta's public acknowledgement. It also detects overprivileged application identities. It detects vulnerabilities in security infrastructure, such as Active Directory certification services. It can also uncover partially decommissioned account with weak credentials, which was an initial vector in the Midnight Blizzard attack. And it can identify unknown connections between production and non-production systems, which is crucial for preventing lateral movement. So why should you consider them? If you need to gain continuous visibility across the IT infrastructure, they are good. If you need to implement identity security posture hardening, and if you suspect privileged abuse or unauthorized access and needs to deploy threat detection. Some examples of their recommendations and detections that I found out were dormant and partially revoked identities, privileged enter ID or Azure Active Directory account not managed by BeyondTrust PSM solution, MFA not enabled, potential privilege escalation via ownership of groups, outdated browser usage, activity in dormant accounts, unusual number of MFA failures in quick succession, activity found on partially disabled identities, recently re enabled privileged accounts, accounts associated with personal email addresses, self reported suspicious activities via Okta, logins via Tor, account forwarding emails to external addresses, Okta session hijacking, password sprays, and Active Directory certificate services vulnerabilities. Now, SOC teams or the SOC teams sometimes do not understand identity attack vectors. Identity security insights offer guided tours, detailed instructions, and alerts in plain language. So, this feature is really helpful because this allows users without deep security expertise to quickly understand risks and learn new defense strategies against emerging threats. Ideal for identity security and essential for resource constrained teams. Insights support all common IDPs, and their MFA mechanism can support multiple authentication providers for an organization. So, personally, I don't see this integration with your current stack being a problem. Another thing that I looked for was the ease of integration. And I was happy to find out that it has got both native and webhook integrations with any preferred tools like ITSM, SIEM, SOAR, uh, obviously BeyondTrust PAM customers. have an advantage here because they can instantly pivot to built-in PAM controls to remediate issues. But other customers, they do have integrations out of the box or tools for integrating that would allow you to integrate this system with your current infrastructure. Their pricing model is subscription based with typically 1 year term. So happy that they are not tying us into a 3 year term. And with a company like BeyondTrust, I'm sure they would have more customized options when it comes to actual signing on the dotted lines. But the biggest thing that I found was they offer a 30 days, no cost guided identity security assessment provided by Identity Security Insights. Like, I don't think it hurts for any of us to do that. This assessment would employ broad continuous visibility, innovative AI and ML, identities, configurations, and all the good things that we spoke about. The output would be they would provide weekly milestones and conclude with an executive readout and detailed report. So it is hard to evaluate because the ITDR itself is evolving. So first you will have to answer what ITDR means for you, and at the same time getting into a 30 days no cost assessment really does help us out in terms of let's see how good they are and also if it makes sense for your organization. Training is a challenge. So they have robust documentation and have plans for providing training, but for now, they are just plans. I'm pretty sure for existing customers, they could work out a deal to provide some sort of training, but this is something that you need to be aware of by before getting into a contractual obligation with them. Now, their major competitors are CrowdStrike, and don't count them out based upon the recent activities. They are still a leader in this space. Delinea, which is an optimized acquisition, CyberArk, Sentinel-1, Silverfoot, Sempris, and Netrix are some of their major competitors. I would put the link to their website and free assessment in the show notes. The good thing that's happening by all of this is the industry is now looking at security through the eyes of an attacker rather than an auditor, which is a major pivot from what we used to do earlier in the identity and access management space. My overall assessment is since this is an emerging space, there is no single vendor that will solve all your problems. Heck, you would first have to be able to define the problem yourself. And I can tell you that even architects in your own company would come with a different plan for solving this problem. So don't expect a silver bullet from anybody, but rather define the problem and understand is this worth your company's money? There are a few things working in favor of Beyond Trust: brand recognition and a cash flow positive company, meaning a healthy R&D budget and an impressive clientele in PAM space. If you are already using their PAM product, then this becomes even more attractive for you. If you are not a customer, you should definitely get a free assessment, but it will only help if you know what you want. That's back to point number one. You have to know what you want. I am positive that this product is in its first iteration and will evolve over time. but I am optimistic about its future and its place in the market. If they do not rest on their laurels, continue to invest in the solution and innovate, they would continue to be the market leader in the foreseeable future. Thank you for listening. You can always reach out to me via LinkedIn, or you can email me at theidentitynavigator@gmail.com. Until next time, this is Rohit, your identity navigator.